name is Rehan Nedaria. I work for Cisco Systems, CTO. Today, I want to cover, obviously, what we have heard from the panel. I'm going to talk on the same lines. With that, let me just quickly go to my first slide. And somebody in the panel talked about we should do exactly the same thing which we did with Digital India, right? India has actually shown the world what happens when we democratize technology, like Digi Yatra, UPI, all of that thing. Everything built on India stack. And this is something which millions and millions of people rely on. And that is exactly what we want to do when we take the next leap towards AI. AI which is going to transform multiple industries, industries like retail, government, public sector, all of these industries. I think we want to do the exact same thing which we did with Digital India. We want to democratize AI, and for that I think it is a little investment in terms of infrastructure. We will have to build massive infrastructure if you want to really go and serve 1.4 billion people in India. And that's where I've just trying to cover the pillars which will be needed to really build that infrastructure. Now we have heard, in the previous session, we heard about energy, we heard about peoples and skills. There are a lot of pillars which are equally important. But I'm going to today touch upon 4 real critical pillars which will help us build that infrastructure. Number 1, compute. And I call it compute as the brain of AI, right? We are talking here to, India is actually carrying 20% of internet traffic. And we have just 3% of world's capacity. If we don't build those capacity, not only GPU, even the data centers, we will have to rely on foreign infrastructure. And that's where I think we will have to invest to build that capacity for the next generation AI. Now, India under AI mission has really taken a very great step. Today, we have reached up to 34,000 GPU capacity in India, but we'll have to do more. Here we are talking about serving entire 1.4 billion population of us. We'll have to rapidly grow. From a Cisco's point of view, we have architectures. I'll just touch upon those architectures in my next slide to show how we are helping India build that infrastructure. The second point is data. Data is the fuel of AI, right? And somebody talked about how many languages we have. India today has 23 different languages. And we cross 100 kilometers, that language changes, let alone context. And I'm not even talking about the various mixes which people do with languages. Today's models are really not trained that way. The models like ChatGPT, at max, they would understand 4, 5, 6 languages of India. We will need our own data sets. We will need our own data set trainings. Now, again, under India AI mission, India AI Coach is really doing some great job by training languages in our own data set. I think approximately 11 languages has been trained so far. Cisco doesn't get directly involved into data sets, but we build pipelines, data pipelines which are safe, secure for the next generation data which we are talking about. The third is networking, which I think is the backbone for AI. If networks are choked, AIs will not perform. And that's where I think I just want to give you an example. When Meta launched AI applications on their network, they saw year on year 30% growth on their backbone, which I think is super critical. And that's where I'm going to touch upon how Cisco enables with their network. We are forefronting the networking innovations with respect to AI and how traffic patterns are changing from an AI perspective. Fourth, security. It's going to be intrinsic part of the entire AI solution. We are talking about millions of data points, medical records, financial details. Everything has to be secure. AI on its own really travels from one place to another, from agents to cloud to data centers. We want to restrict that everything inside a sovereign data center inside the country. That's super critical for us. We will have to probably follow frameworks, security frameworks, laid out by OWASP, NIST, etc., to really secure this next generation threats which we are seeing with respect to AI. In fact, from a government perspective, the DPDPA really lays how do we handle the digital data which we are going to process. So these are the 4 pillars which I really wanted to touch upon today, and I'm going to talk about that in detail. Of course, we have heard by the panelists about energy concerns, about people people and skills, that is something which is also equally important. Okay, now from a networking perspective, what is changing? Now we have built networks for years, right? What is changing? I think it's the traffic pattern which is important. Now networking again is the nervous system of the AI thing, right? We have designed our network using caching. We have engineered our networks using caching and placed cached over there. Now in AI world that changes. No two requests from two person, same request would be answered in a very different way. Right? If try using ChatGPT, ask the same question, the response would be two different answers. Right? The context is different. AI traffic, we will have to handle in a very different way, something like an AI inference server or something like that, right? AI drives upstream traffic more, which we have not seen with internet traffic. With internet traffic, we have seen a lot of download. Just try sending, if I tomorrow, let's just think about it, if I send a query to Google, it's going to be 10 kbps, 20 kbps, but in AI, everything changes. Everything changes because it's all in terms of tokens. Our tokens would have lot of additional information, like context, history, why are you asking, what are you asking, all of that goes upstream to them, and the answer can come out simply yes or no. This is how AI works. So your upstream versus downstream would really change. Last, I want to talk about data centers, right? Somebody talked about we'll need edge data centers. That is so true. We do not want to really send all our data to cloud to answer. Just imagine a scenario where we want live updates from a stadium. We want that to be processed at the edge of the network. That's where I think we will need edge data centers. More and more edge data centers to address models specifically from an India perspective to those kind of requirements. Now, how is Cisco enabling this? We are building networks from a long time, right? From L0, layer 0, L1, which you see on the left-hand side, DWDM, IP plus optical integration, to all the way towards an autonomous network where AI traffic can be seen, handled, recovered, and safely driven from point A to point B. All across one silicon family, which we call it as Silicon One. Of course, security is going to be intrinsic, and I'm going to have a security discussion on specific slide, which is going to be part of that. From a data center perspective, just a little bit about what are the two approaches which Cisco is taking. One is the distributed infrastructure. This is a bespoke solution which one can really pick up and start building it. Example, the India AI mission which we have built has a fabric from the Nexus family. We call it as lossless fabric. We have built the entire AI mission infrastructure on that. So, an hyperscaler like Meta also uses that kind of design, right? You can also build fabrics for small enterprise which are delivered from cloud itself. Third is the UCS server, our server compute family, which has acceleration card both from NVIDIA as well as AMD. Now the second on the right-hand side is the full stack systems. This is a complete integrated solution. This is validated, designed, and owned by Cisco. You start at the networking layer, you start at the compute layer, you have the integrated GPUs and from AMD and NVIDIA both. You go to the virtualization level and even the software, along with the security and the resiliency which we want to build for this infrastructure. This is completely owned, so one can really pick up a pod and go and put it at an inferencing side. Just wanted to give you an understanding how we are building data centers across, how we are building India's data center for the next generation ask which we are looking for. Okay, super important, security. Now, generative AI has really changed everybody's experience. Think about it, somebody can go on internet, use a browser, start creating data, start creating video, start creating softwares. That barrier of creativity is diminished completely, right? This is the power generative AI gets. Now, with that power comes a great responsibility. We are seeing a lot of new threats. New threats like hallucination, which were not there, which we call it as safety, prompt injection, data poisoning, potential of misuse. And I would like to just give an example how this is implemented and how we are securing an AI infrastructure, right from the beginning. Take an example of an hospital where doctors are using a model where they can upload scan data, medical records, and then according to that, they can start treating the patients or prescribe some treatment. The model, if it hallucinates or if it is poisoned, then this is going to be a great risk for somebody to really go and understand the data which is there, right? Right at the forefront, what we do is we defend the model itself at the beginning. We put guardrails to the model and defend the model itself. That's where Cisco AI defense comes into picture. The next step, who is going to upload on the model, right? That's where we have Cisco AI Access. With Cisco AI Access, people can go who are allowed to go and upload the data. Upload the data to that particular model and what they can upload. What are they doing? What kind of traffic is going on? Everything is handled by Cisco AI Access. The last, which is super important, is the enforcement point. Where do you enforce this policy in your network? Right inside the server. With Cisco isovalent, eBPF is a technology which we use on the switch, along with the DPU, on the firewall, throughout the network, and manage this entire thing with the single pane of glass. This is how Cisco is enabling India's AI infrastructure to be secure, so that we can build trust for people to really use this kind of solution. Sorry, this is my last slide. Over last 3 decades, Cisco is part of India's digital journey. And from analog transformation to digital transformation to now AI transformation, Cisco is investing in infrastructure, innovating so that India moves from digital cloud to AI cloud. With that, I will conclude. Quick 10 minutes intro of what we are doing and how we are helping India to build AI infrastructure. Thank you.
Hope you're all awake. So firstly, thanks Rihan for the insightful discussion. I think quite intriguing. And we heard a lot on the AI, what India's AI mission is. Thanks for that. So just to start, good afternoon again. I think we all know we are at a cusp of the revolution where intelligence is not inherited, but engineered. So with this discussion to take forward, I would like to call upon the fellow panelists, and for the next 45 minutes, we'll be discussing on democratizing the intelligence, which is important for building AI's infrastructure for India. So just to start with, I would like to welcome Mr. Dushmanta Pradhan, EVP Technology Vodafone. He leads IP and Optics Network Strategy at Vodafone India. Please, can we have you on stage? Mr. Vivek Murthy, President OSS Rakuten. He leads business unit and development of AI platforms with autonomous network operations. Welcome, Mr. Vivek. The next in line, we have Mr. Gautam Billa, VP International Sales, Sienna, who looks after the pre-sales, business development, network engineering. Mr. Ankur, the Chief Business Officer, Constel. Next, we have Mr. Fritz Lendolt, SVP Strategy and Business Development, Huberat Sonar, a global leader in fiber optics and RF connectivity. And last but not the least, Mr. Balaji, the Chief Technologist, Keysight Technologies. Can we have you on stage, please? Thank you once again. Hi, hello. So maybe, Dushmanta, just wanted to understand, over the last 2 days, we have been hearing a lot about, India's readiness for the AI. And a lot has been said on the infrastructure. What do you think are the key building blocks for AI's infrastructure in India? And how do you see it is going to shape up over the next few years?
Hello, am I audible?
Yes.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Yogesh, it's a very important questions. My view is Government of India has already done substantial steps. We have taken on many steps towards it. But if I have to add into what probably we can do additionally, uh, we need to have, as we know, the data is the most important thing, and I think the fellow colleague mentioned before this meeting, panel discussion, that data is the most important thing for AI to work. So accessibility of data and availability of the data is very important. While telco like us, we are, doing our bit to do to actually, uh, take this to next level. But we need to do a lot as a country to make sure that the accessibility and availability of data is important. Second is how do we take care of the privacy and the data regulations around how do we take care of it. That is the second point which we need to do. Third, we need to clearly spell out the strategy and the policy and framework what government of India needs to, how do you handle, AI also needs a lot of accountability and responsibility for all of us. How do you kind of ensure that the AI is handled responsibly and we do not misuse this for different purpose? That is the third thing. uh, Fourth one is a lot of investment required for talent. How do we kind of infuse understanding of AI at the engineering college level? Should we have more PhDs? Can we have some innovation fund around AI so that people are more encouraged to kind of, have collaborations at the academic level? And also global expertise. How can we tap into the various global expertise which is available for our country uh, so that, we can take it forward. And if I have to add what we need to do, it is some policy like Mission Bharat, where the last leg of the industry, whether it is education, whether it is healthcare, agriculture, how can we have a, policies where the industry specific solutions can be made so that people in villages can actually take advantages of the AI as a technology and start utilizing it on a day-to-day basis. So there are a lot to do as far as government is concerned. And uh, it is not only the technology part, it is about policies, it is about framework, it is about putting AI law, because if you do something wrong, how do you prosecute that man? So there are many things which needs to be done from a government of India point of view. I think we are all working together to see that how can we take it to the next level. That's my view.
Sure. Maybe just a follow up. As a telecom operator, we know that India is quite diverse, and we have the legacy systems that have been there in the ecosystem since a while. But for AI to happen, either the legacy systems need to move out or need to have an evolution. And at the same time, the geography also plays an important role in India. Maybe any quick views onto that?
Yeah, so you need to have clusters. You need to create clusters. Probably in some areas you can have education clusters. You can have healthcare cluster. You can have banking and finance cluster. So you need to create clusters so that you can concentrate the efforts around that cluster in a specific geography. And India being the first country, you can really tap into the various clusters, what is good in particular geography, and start working towards it. And, co-create it with academic, with policies, with the state government, right? So that you can, take it to the next level. That's my view.
Sure, that's a very good point. To that, I'll pass on to Vivek. Vivek, I think AI adoption in sectors are different. Some sectors are the front runners, while some see there is a shift likely to happen. How do you think India's DPI can really accelerate this adoption?
Yeah, firstly, hello everybody. So, I think what I would do is reflect on how we are doing it in our organizations. I work in Rakuten, and the organization is in some shape or form a microcosm of the country. And let me reflect on that because I think that will be more probably interesting for the audience. And we can always draw parallels of how that works from an organization into a country, which is obviously a lot more complex. So, firstly, Rakuten itself, it started as an e-commerce company, and therefore, an e-commerce company, the AI was there right from the beginning because recommendations, all these things that were happening, right? So it's been there for the last 20 years, machine learning and all that. But we have a concept of called triple 20, which is basically we need 20% improvement in our marketing. This is internal, by the way. 20% improvement in marketing efficiencies, which means that when you're doing e-commerce activities, can we recommend 20% better? Because obviously that leads to better gross merchandise revenues and all that, right? 20% improvement in operations. So the way we deploy our networks, the way our operational efficiencies in the group itself, because Rakuten is a group with many, many companies, fintech and telco and all that. 20% improvement there. And then 20% improvement for our customers who are using our products, our systems. So why am I saying that? I think the point here is there is a culture of, we call it ANization, but culture from the top, right? Which says, everybody in the company should use AI for whatever it is. So from all these, I mentioned operationals, marketing, even bid management, procurement, software engineers who are part of my team, they have to use AI, right? So that's one big part of, it's the mindset, it's the culture, it starts from there. Number two, even with that, you have to make AI available cheaply and easily, right? So, and so we have something called Rakuten AI for Rakutunians. We have done deals with, OpenAI and various other group level deals, and we have this portal internal available that everybody in the company, right, all the thousands and thousands of employees can actually use AI for their use. So it's one thing to say from the top down, all of you use it, but you got to make it accessible and make it available for people to indeed do their jobs. But with all that, you still then are left with a situation where only 50% of the people will use it, which is great, by the way, but we want the entire 100% to use it. So when I did a poll in my own, for example, software group of about, let's say, 1,000 people, how many of you use it? Only about 400 people use it. So you then have to do a bottom-up kind of championing of that as well. You do your AI summits, hackathons, and so on. So you're kind of doing top-down, you're making it available, you're doing bottom-up. You need to do all these things to make AI really, get into the kind of DNA of your organization. Now, if you come back to your question about how you do it, DPI is a great stack. I mean, it's a wonderful tech stack, right? Now, just imagine if you have to make it available, accessible, and be put to productive use in the country. You got to be doing all these things. The top down, and we know that the government, and we have heard yesterday as well, a lot of push happening, lots of infrastructure being built. Lots of people in the panel who are representing companies who are building it. Therefore, you're going to make it hopefully available and cheap. And then it's about that bottom up. A lot of people have to play a part to make that AI available. And I think if you do that, then this asset, which is the DPI stack and all the kind of things, they will absolutely get turbocharged. And I think the potential is like massive, and we can unleash that. So
That's a great level of optimism, I would say, Vivek. Maybe Gautam, how do you see, if we contextualize to India? I know for AI, US, Japan have been the front runner. Now, how do you see, the challenges in India? Because for a geography like us, it has to, expand at a scale. But there could be some challenges, operational challenges, technical challenges. The ecosystem needs to come in. How do you see that is spanning up?
Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes.
So thanks for having me here, first of all. I think from an infrastructure perspective, if I start talking about some of the challenges, it's going to be a journey, as Dushmanta mentioned earlier. And there are going to be different phases for this journey. If I talk about some of the challenges, let's start with the base infrastructure, first of all. When we talk about base infrastructure, I'm talking about starting with real estate, data centers, networks, whatever else that we need to build to make AI successful. And let's say, starting with data centers, we got to stop talking about data centers being, let's say, 10 or 20 megawatt of capacity. What we are talking about is a step function increase. We're talking about hundreds of megawatts. We're even talking about gigawatt data centers now. And if I, not too long ago, if I look at it, India's total data center capacity was a gigawatt. And now we are talking about a single data center being a gigawatt of capacity. Now, what that really requires is, it requires, first of all, the real estate. We are talking about hundreds of kilowatts per rack. We are talking about liquid cooling. We are talking about, let's say, 1300 kg of racks being put in a floor space. So the floor space needs to take that capacity or load. So I think there's a lot of challenges that we need to solve. It's going to be a journey. Once we have infrastructure in place, we need to connect that infrastructure. We're talking about mega scale networks, high capacity, and these need to be both metro distance, these need to go across India, across the long haul, connect cities together. So that's the infrastructure piece of it. Once you have the infrastructure, the second stage there is the building of localized models, building of agents, workflows, and how we actually monetize the infrastructure. And the speaker before us talked about this a little bit. It's about how do you actually take the base as a large language model and convert it into something that is more monetizable. We're investing about billions and trillions of dollars into building this base infrastructure, but there has to be an ROI to it. The return on investment, if we have to drive that, there needs to be monetization that needs to happen. So that's stage number 2. And for these two to happen, the third most important thing is, how do we drive adoption of AI? Now, the good news is that India as a country, and we as people, we are a curious bunch, right? We like to try new things, we like to fail fast, and we start to try again. So if you look at various other technologies that have come into picture, I think we've been able to adopt technology very, very quickly, and I expect the same out of AI. So the adoption is going to be key. It will require a lot of education. Dushmanta talked about it earlier. It will require policies. It will require a lot of investment. But from a people perspective, I'm pretty sure that as a country, we should be able to adopt these things much faster. There's another last aspect to it, which is the availability and the price models and so on. So we got to make it affordable. That's going to be critical. If we have to truly democratize AI, it's got to be affordable, it's got to be available to the masses. So I think those are some of the challenges that we need to solve as an industry to really drive AI into the next stage.
Oh, that's quite insightful, Gautam. Maybe I'll take a data center point further with Ankur. Ankur, how do you see the data centers are shaping up in India with two perspectives? Because for us to have networks which are highly reliable with low latency, there has to be AI-led or AI-enabled data centers. And those networks needs to be, expanded, scalable to an extent so that it supports the infrastructure. What are the key considerations that are important from your perspective?
Thanks, Yogesh. Good afternoon, all. So networks have to evolve, to my mind, transform to support the AI data centers that we're talking about. The current level of networks that we have were designed for a different use case. They were defined for reach. I think when we talk about AI, we need a different kind of a network which is more direct, which is more express, connecting data center to data centers directly. So instead of looking at coverage, going to each town and route. We're looking at scale. Rehan spoke about, every time, you have a query, the whole token going, the whole context. The kind of scale we are talking about, I think the current network infrastructure that we have in the country is not designed for that scale. We are talking about putting in multiple conduits, huge amount of fibers that would be needed to really support this kind of AI growth. We're talking about fiber networks which are much more resilient, looking at newer routes. India is a country which is developing. there's a lot of infrastructure work happening on the ground, which impacts telecom networks. So you're looking at building newer routes, which are then getting into roads which have been built already where there is less infrastructure work happening. You're looking at utility-based fibers which are more resilient. One of the very important piece is, how do we build these networks which are more energy efficient? What I mean by that is, one thing which we do not talk as much when we build this infrastructure as to how these networks contribute to sustainability and energy, and of course low cost. So we're talking about lower loss fibers. There's a study which has been done which says that a 0.01 dB loss reduction in fiber could lead to a saving of 5% in energy, and which is a huge saving if you look at the quantum we are talking about. OEMs like C&R, Nokia, they are manufacturing equipments which are now talking about a 400 gig, 800 gig, a 1.6 tera wavelength. And really all these would further, of course, add to scale, but reduce cost and also add to energy efficiency. So just to give you an example, one can increase capacities of the network by 4x by just adding 15% extra power. So all of these, network transformations are happening as we speak, and really all this is needed to be able to support the AI data centers that we are talking about.
Sure, maybe I take it to Fritz. So Fritz, Ankur did mention on the fiber and the connectivity. How do you see that is an important enabler to this overall infrastructure? Because there has to be a fiber which should connect the data centers, because that will have some milliseconds latency and almost an immediate response to work with the hyperscalers. How do you think the stack and architectures are going to shape up?
Thank you, Yosh. Thanks for the great question and good afternoon. So first of all, before I try to answer your question, I would like to reflect what I've heard yesterday in one of the panel in regard of digital infrastructure first. There it was talked about access, be it via mobile, 4G, 5G, or the BharatNet for the rural society. So there, for me, access means that's an important element, but it also means access. If we talk about democratizing AI, it's also access and availability to the AI compute power. Maybe that just as an opening topic here. And we need to make sure that these big investments going into this field are not only for the benefit of the wealthy part of the society, that is really become available for the rest of it. Now coming back to the question, AI data center, and we work with global hyperscalers around the world. AI data centers, the performance of these data centers are primarily driven by the GPUs, so to say. Along with the algorithm use like large language models and the like. To maximize the utilization of these scarce and energy intensive resources, hyperscalers are currently actively looking into new data center network designs in order to ensure that the GPUs equipped are always running at full capacity and full performance. These efforts, from our point of view, from Hubersuner point of view, seems to be on top of their agenda in order for the race of who builds the most powerful infrastructure. These new architectures, some words about that one, also require some significant software orchestration resources, such as SDNs, that's not to be neglected. Coming back to the data center architecture, we currently see three major architectural trends in AI data center. One is the spine layer OEO switch replacement with an optical switch. That is ongoing. There are several hyperscalers, some have done it, some are thinking about it. Then another thing which is very important, which is looked at currently, is the GPU clustering. So that's basically a scale up within the data center in order to flexibilize and also to make sure that these GPUs are really fully loaded. And the last element is disaggregation of data center components, which is more some kind of a scale out activity where basically you connect different data centers, AI data centers together in a clever way to optimize the performance. All these approaches aim to achieve scalability, reduce latency, optimize power consumption, and long-term capital investment protection.
That's a good insight. Maybe I'll pass on to Balaji. So Balaji, we have a lot of technologies that we see, coming up. We have 5G, we have 6G in the horizon, and it is said all these technologies going to complement to build the AI infrastructure. How do you see our readiness in terms of build a sovereign AI network for India? Because it's important that we should align to our own India AI mission. Not the protocols or standards globally, but also the Indian standards. How do you see that is going to happen?
Yeah, thank you for the great question, and very happy to be here participating in this panel. Maybe taking a step back, right? So most of the industry sectors, especially in the technology space, have this kind of a dual relationship with AI. One is that we are all in the process of figuring out how to help the AI revolution in a way, right? How do we contribute and how do we help? But the flip side of that is also, we are all also trying to figure out how to use AI to better ourselves. This is true of sectors broadly, but also true of individual companies. Just take mine for example. Keysight, we're a test and measurement company, so we are very much in the forefront in terms of helping all of the network operators, the mobile device manufacturers, equipment manufacturers, enter into this new world of AI and how to test the performance of these AI-based systems as compared to conventional, past systems. But at the same time, Keysight, we are also trying to figure out how to use AI to improve our equipment, our instrumentation, our systems, both for our own internal performance, but also for our customers. All this preamble is to say that there are certain global commonalities, and those lessons have to be learned from the Indian context as well. As we heard even yesterday, in the inaugural speech as well from the Prime Minister, in India followed in 4G, India was sort of equal to the world in 5G, and India would like to lead in 6G. So I think there is a similar opportunity here to leapfrog into the next generation, especially when it comes to AI. There are some inherent sort of strengths that India has, and we have to play to it. I would say that an example I would take is I live in the US and I work in the US, so Indian doctors are very popular, and one reason I hear is that as part of their training in India, they just see a humongous wide variety of diseases and cases, and so things don't surprise them and they're able to diagnose better. Similarly, I think that there is a huge diversity of the types of use cases, the types of applications that can be relevant to India, and there is so much more scope for innovation. Especially, I think the telecommunications, the mobile networking field has a big role to play in it, in the sense that by providing edge compute services, by providing edge inferencing services, and the ability for a common user to maybe develop AI applications, maybe just using their mobile phone, and being able to access these inferencing services at the edge, you can unlock the imagination of the entire country and have everybody come up with new applications. We heard a lot about opening up the infrastructure fabric for universities and academics to use, and that is clearly one of the big areas of focus. But at the same time, also at the consumer level, at the individual innovator level, I think there is huge scope. And I also think that the integration into the the digital infrastructure that's already happened, right? It's part of Aadhaar and DigiLocker. They're all part of the service workflow and the KYC of the operators today, and so they already are tapped into this, and so that can unlock a whole lot of new applications in a safe way, like medical applications or financial applications. I think these are all the areas that I think India can lead the way, and the telco infrastructure can help.
And maybe just a follow up, if you can respond, maybe in a minute to conclude. What should we do now? I think we are not the front runners in AI, but we are leapfrogging. What are the top three things should we do, taking the maybe the learnings from the West or maybe the countries who have adopted?
Yeah. So I think that the world as a whole has a quote-unquote conventional infrastructure footprint at this point. Base stations are specialized boxes delivering signals over the air, but there is a reimagining of this where you can imagine even the base station cluster as a data center, a mini data center, where let's say GPU and CPU compute services are available for the radio network when needed, but can be reused for AI services when not needed. And so there is a sharing of infrastructure. I think this is, one of the key areas that the entire, space needs to think as a whole. There is already real estate available. There is already all of these data center, plumbing available, fiber optics available. Can we go that last mile to change the compute fabric behind the RAN, the radio access network? I think that's one important, area, I think. And I can certainly foresee that the ubiquitous availability of data, right, for the network operators is a gold mine, and that can really be, intentionally used in a safe way with all of the privacy concerns taken care of, in order to create sort of localized applications that are very specific to regions or very specific to use cases. For example, in 6G, sort of integrated sensing along with communications becoming a very important use case. And it may seem very esoteric, but we are looking at use cases like, can you detect a patient in an old age home falling down and immediately call for emergency help in an automated way? Can AI help with this? Turns out, yes. I mean, we do experimentation to figure out. Of course, there's a lot of hurdles going from A to B, but you can think of a million such applications, and those are the areas we should be thinking about.
Thank you. Maybe I'll go to Ankur. So, Ankur, how do you see, do we have the platforms? Do we have the systems in place to connect the networks? Because what I understood from the discussion, it's also about flexibility, agility, and on-demand capacity. In your view, how are we placed in terms of connecting to the data centers? And if you need to give a quick, 3 pointers, how should we move forward to have this vision in place?
I think one area that we would have to look at when we talk about AI applications is it's beyond connecting two sites and throwing data from A end to B end. AI would have very different applications. Each different application would have a different demand. When I say that, I mean some application would be very sensitive to latency. Another application would have a requirement, let's say, like a data sovereignty requirement, where the data has to not cross the India border. There would be, access authorization rules. So all of these policies, these rules, have to be translated into policies and then network configuration. And that's why I think we have been talking about software-defined networking. I think it has to evolve into what I call, or what the industry calls, intent-based networking, wherein all these things are defined by the user and then converted into policies, implemented, and really AI is then used to really monitor that. So that's one area I think which the whole industry is working on, very, very prominent. I think there are other things which are happening more on, again, address scale. There are new technologies emerging, whether it's on hollow core fiber, whether it's on multi-rail system, really to ensure that the networks continue to scale and support the bandwidth demand that the AI would have.
Sure. Maybe Vivek, for you, I think he just mentioned on data sovereignty. Do we have the frameworks and compliances in place to have this AI, you know, readiness on a large scale in India?
I mean, I think the question is about what's the policy, what's the regulatory framework in which people can safely use AI. I mean, the infrastructure is great. It's like the fundamentals on which you build. But at the end of the day, it's people, ordinary people around the country using it for whatever use cases. And the concept of, fairness comes in. What do I mean by fairness is, firstly, is it responsible AI? Responsible AI means, just think of the DPI and the tech stacks we're talking about, the humongous amount of data that is sitting beneath. And this DPI stack and all the, this is not just, government and their enterprise, they're private, UPI, various other, companies involved, public, private, and, coming together to provide this humongous amount of data. And you got to be so careful and responsible with this data because, you got to anonymize the data, you got to encrypt it, you got to be able to make sure that it's really kept safe, the guardrails are in place. That's huge responsibility for our policymakers and regulatory guys to enforce upon all these players who are in the public sector, private sector. So that's huge. The second thing is, we call this concept of explainable AI. AI is doing all this magic, but people using it ultimately are using it for their and benefits, right? So again, coming from that perspective, being able to explain and be transparent about it is an extremely important thing. It's certainly for our B2B, for the products that we build in our company and deploy it with our customers, I think explaining why the AI is doing what it's doing is very, very important. And the third thing in all this is the accuracy of the answers. We know that things like drifting and hallucination, all these things, they exist, right? And somebody mentioned in the previous panel, you ask the same question to two different people, based on the context, you get two different answers. At some point, surely that's not the acceptable reality. You got to be able to have accurate, consistent answers, safe answers, and all that. So I think the long and short of it, this is the policy guys, have a huge amount of work to do and to keep up with this. I mean, and I've seen their cybersecurity and quantum computing written out there. When you think about what quantum computing will do in the years to come, the hacking is going to become an extremely important thing, right? We know that. So again, AI and quantum computing, you put all these things together, we are in a world which is extremely dynamic, and lots of people will have to do some really important, guardrail work to keep people safe in all this. So I think that's kind of where we're going.
Thank you. Maybe Dushmanta, I think we have been hearing AI, make in India, make for India. I think we've been hearing that. Do we really have an ecosystem ready in India to support that? Or do we have a still reliance on foreign vendors? Do we have indigenous technology with us?
So my view is we have started in the right direction. Maybe we're not there, but I think we have taken steps towards it. Make in India program by Government of India is one such clear directions, and the recent thrust on the chipset, making Indian own chipsets is also a direction towards that. So I would not say that we are there, but there are clear indications of policies where we are moving in the right direction. But I would like to add few more things which probably we should do. Let's say, can we create something, a public cloud, okay, created by Government of India or together with private body where the entire nation can participate. Okay, can that be a replacement for Azure, so that you can have your own public cloud where anybody and everybody could do anything what they want with a very affordable cost, because if you really have a cost which is not affordable in India, probably people will not be encouraged to do. So a clear policies, I think US has it, Also, China also has it. So, if you really want to have contribution from everybody in the masses, we need to encourage a public cloud where people can do their bit and take this AI journey forward. We really need to invest more and more on the chipsets. Piece, which I think one of our fellow colleague mentioned, is the cost of power in India. Okay, what kind of data centers we need, what kind of power cost we have today, whether you need to go to tier 2, tier 3 cities to have that kind of real estate costs comparable what you want to do. But then what's the condition of power in the tier 2, tier 3 cities? And do we really have power to kind of support the GPUs what they need? I think while we have taken steps towards it, we have to do a lot in the infrastructure side to make India a AI powerhouse. That's what my view is.
Thank you. Maybe I'll go back to Fritz. So Fritz, it's more from an outside in view because you are coming, from the different geography. How do you think India's position to become an AI leader?
I think that we have heard now several times power consumption concerns. And here I can share a bit what our experience is with working with global hyperscalers. They have similar problems, and they are in various different stages of their development. But a common focus we have when working with them is really to focus on the physical layer, because that's the fundament. It remains the fundament of a well-functioning data center. I will come back to certain points on that one. One key initiative, also in terms of saving power, for example, on still not jeopardizing on the capacity, on the performance, is replacing or adding, supplementing the existing OEO switch, optical switch, with optical circuit switching. That is one of the key elements, and we have here our unique direct light technology from Huber+Suhner Polatis. This enables the data center to become, first of all, more power efficient, and secondly, which is also a key element, agnostic to the ever-increasing data rates on the transceivers. So nowadays it's 400 gig, it's 800 gig soon, and we will soon see in 1.6 terabyte. And with an optical circuit switch, basically you can decouple this from the switch. Having talked about transceiver, these are also a consumer of power a lot in data centers. Here we are working as well on transceiver components, we on tiny fiber connection devices in transceivers, and in that respect we also understand the transceiver capability, let's say transceiver challenges, and we are also here to support our customers in that regards. Another element that was mentioned before as well is the low latency part. As I said, we are focusing on the layer level, and there are emerging technologies around the corner like hollow-core fiber, which we can be proud of, that we working since 8 years with the leading hollow-core fiber provider worldwide with our cabling and connector solution. So this could actually be a next boost. It will take a while until it's really from a cost point of view there where it should be, but there it will be a big boost to also enable then the scalability and the performance of the data center. Last but not least, there is, my colleague mentioned as well, we need to have optical fiber that's around since a while, but need to be high performant, they need to be high quality, because nobody wants to have link flapping between the GPUs. That's an important element here, obviously. We can also support here, and that's important as well, that it's coming out of our India factory. And really the last thing I would like to mention here, all these decentralized architectures, they require high timing needs. So because also support here in order to make sure that all the elements of the AI data center are in sync.
Thank you. Maybe my last question to Mr. Gautam. So Gautam, I think I have noted three key points from the discussion. It says skills, which is very important. Second is sovereignty and probably the sustainability, because this infrastructure has to sustain. What is your viewpoint? Which one is more important? And if all three needs to go together as a leader, what do you suggest the audience? Maybe what is the outlook look like for a country like India, where we have taken the steps, but it's a long journey to go.
I think, first of all three are going to go hand in hand. All three of them are quite important. And I'll start with the notion of scale that you talked about. And I think, first of all, I completely agree, and I'll talk about it more from a networking perspective, because this is not going to be a percentage increase in what we actually build. It's going to be a step function change. And I think my Ankur talked about it earlier. And while he was talking, the problem is that we are hardcore engineers. So while he was listing out some of those challenges, I was probably making an Excel sheet in my mind saying, okay, this one we can solve, this one we can solve, check, check. But when we talk about scale, right, this is going to be step function change. It's going to be sizable. So we will need to build some mega scale infrastructure in the country for sure. That's one. Now, we're thinking about this, and as an engineering organization, we kind of talk about it every single day as to what will it require, how do we solve some of these challenges. And I'll give you an example. For example, let's say if I want to connect two AI data centers, this is going to take, let's say, petabytes of capacity. And if this is going to take petabytes of capacity, we could probably do it today, maybe in a smaller distance, inside a city, inside Delhi, let's say 20 kilometers. Yeah, we can do it. But let's say if I want to cover the country, or if I want to do, let's say, a Delhi-Mumbai connectivity or a Mumbai-Chennai connectivity, which is a few thousand kilometers, that's going to be a challenge as on today. So we got to have this notion of scale as to what are we going to build, how are we going to reduce power, and you talked about sustainability, extremely key. If I want to, let's say, send a petabyte of traffic from Mumbai to Chennai today, every 80 kilometers I will need a site which requires 15, 20 kilowatts of power. Now that's not sustainable. So we will have to miniaturize things, we will have to optimize things, we'll have to drive more efficiency, we'll probably have to cut it down by 60, 70, 80%. So those are the problems that we think about every day. You also talked about sovereignty. And I think sovereignty is something that will drive a lot of capacity in terms of things will have to be localized, things will have to be done inside the country, and inside the country, the architecture will need to be distributed across regions. And when you distribute that architecture across regions, because of data security, data sovereignty, it's going to drive a lot of network traffic and capacity. So I think it's something that we are looking at and thinking about every single day.
Thank you, Gautam. Maybe I'll just say it's a very enlightening discussion by the panelists. I think the two key takeaways, what I got with the visions of the leaders and the policymakers is we are on a right track. In fact, if we continue doing it, building an AI infrastructure at scale would not be too far for us. It's just having right intent, right momentum in motion, I would say. So with this, I just like to thank you to the panelists. Before we conclude, any questions from the audience, please? Yes. You can also just let us know too, this question is for which panelist?
Anybody would do. I'm a layperson, so we have got only AI, in terms of AI infrastructure, we have got only 3 to 4% of the overall infrastructure in India. And all the AI applications, mostly 75% of it, are hosted outside of India, hyperscalers and others. Now, these applications are non-geographic. They do not have a characteristics of a country, but yes, there are a question of cross-border data and other things. How do you see AI evolving when you are talking about India applications where the market is not moving, the government is moving to get the GPUs installed and all of this? How do you see then AI coming into an Indian version and whether actually there is a requirement of Indian version or the global version which are being developed, that will be sufficient for everybody.
Maybe I can start with this one. One thing I would like to talk about here is, and I think my colleague talked about it, hallucinations, training bias. When you're actually training models, it's really important to understand how these models are being trained. There's a background, there's a culture, there's ethnicity to it, multiple languages. So I think if all that needs to be incorporated, it needs to be localized a little more. Now, there are two ways of doing it. One is you can pick a base model which is being built elsewhere. You could fine tune it and localize it a little more, or you could actually build it from scratch. So I think those are two different ways of looking at it. There'll be an element of both going forward, and that's the reason we'll have to kind of bring these things or have these things more localized, in my opinion.
So my response is similar to what Gautam said. What I would like to add is, there is, we are living in a global world, so there is no harm adapting global practices, global development that have already happened. However, anything that is developed globally would need contextualization towards a local geography. So if there is something which is more relevant to India, more contextual to India, those new learnings, those new modifications, optimizations, improvisations would have to be done. Having said that, I think there is definitely space for Indian companies in the AI space. There was a lot of discussion yesterday during the Prime Minister session also as to what can be done, what should be done for India to really develop its own AI applications. And I think from a network point of view, I can talk about, I think there is a lot more to be done to be able to support those local AI applications. How do we make networks more affordable? How do we bring in pay-per-use models? So all of that has to be done to be able to support that India-grown AI space. But there is no harm absolutely to be able to learn what has been done and has been proven across the world, is my view.
Maybe I have one small thing to add. So, yeah, certainly, as the others have mentioned, there is no harm in using the models that are already out there and the work that has been done globally. But at the same time, I think specifically, linguistic and cultural-based applications are very amenable to local models, for sure, right? So we already know that even global models, for example, image recognition models are able to, let's say, recognize images or faces of a certain color better than other colors. So similarly, we talked about so many languages, so many dialects, and also intermingling of these dialects, which is very unique to India. And I think those kinds of areas are where definitely local models have to be. There is no need to cede that strength to somebody else.
Thank you so much. I think with this we conclude. Okay. I think one of our panelists have a flight to catch. Okay, so thank you so much. A round of applause for the panelists for their visionary insights. Thank you so much once again. Maybe a felicitation, a memo.
Yeah, so I will just request Yogesh to please hand over the mementos to the सिर्फ विवेक को पहले एक बैग दे दो एक बैग विवेक को दे दो नीचे उतर जाएगा